Welcome to LifeConfessions TV. Try to relax and feel the story.
My name is Emily Carter, and for 6 years, I believed I had the perfect life. I was married to a man everyone admired, Daniel Carter. People used words like ambitious, smart, future millionaire, but they never used the word honest, because the truth is, Daniel wasn't any of those things. At least not with me. We met when I was 24. I worked as a project coordinator in a marketing agency in Chicago. Nothing glamorous, just a stable job and a small apartment. Daniel was different. He had dreams, big ones. "I'm going to start my own company," he told me on our third date. A real one, not some tiny startup. I remember smiling, because he looked so confident when he said it, and I believed him. Looking back now, that was my first mistake, because Daniel didn't build his company alone. He built it with my money. At first, it was small, just ideas. Late nights at the kitchen table, business plans, spreadsheets. He talked about investors, about marketing strategies, about how his company could easily be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I supported him, emotionally, financially, in every possible way. When he needed money to register the company, I paid the $5,000 fee. When he needed software and equipment, I spent another $12,000. And when he said he needed capital to get the business running, I gave him $40,000 for my savings. That was almost everything I had. But I trusted him. After all, he was my husband. "Once the company grows," he told me one night, "we'll never have to worry about money again." He looked straight into my eyes when he said it. And I believed him, because I loved him. And when you love someone, you don't imagine they're lying to your face. The business actually started growing, slowly at first, then faster. Within 3 years, Daniel's company was making serious money. Clients from different states, large contracts, new employees. Everyone said the same thing: Daniel is a genius. But what people didn't know was this: I was the one managing the finances. I was the one organizing operations. I was the one fixing problems behind the scenes. Daniel was the face. I was the structure. And together, we built a company worth almost $300,000. But there was someone else who watched all of it happen. Someone who knew my entire life, my secrets, my fears, my dreams, my best friend. Her name was Lauren. Lauren and I had known each other for 10 years. We met in college. She was the person I called when something amazing happened, and the person I called when everything went wrong. She was also the person who came to our house every weekend. Dinner, wine, movies. Sometimes she stayed overnight. Daniel always said the same thing: "You two are like sisters." And I believed that too, until the night everything changed. It started with something small. Something that almost didn't seem important. A message. A single message on Daniel's phone. If I hadn't seen it, my life might have stayed alive forever. Daniel was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to snoop. I really wasn't. But the screen lit up, and I saw the name: Lauren Redhart. At first I smiled, because that seemed normal. Lauren texted me all the time. But then I saw the message preview, and my stomach dropped. It said, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." For a second, my brain refused to understand what I was reading, because there had to be another explanation. There had to be. But when I opened the message, everything became clear. There were dozens of texts, weeks of them, maybe months, photos, plans, jokes about how Emily would never figure it out. And one message that I will never forget. Lauren wrote, "Once the company hits $300,000, we should tell her and get the divorce done." My hands started shaking, because suddenly, everything made sense. They weren't just cheating. They were waiting. Waiting until the business became successful. Waiting until there was real money. Waiting until I helped build it. And then, they planned to throw me away, like I meant nothing. I sat there in the kitchen, holding Daniel's phone, and listening to the shower running upstairs. For the first time in my life, I felt something colder than anger, something sharper than heartbreak. I felt clarity, because they thought I was stupid. They thought I would cry. They thought I would leave quietly. But they forgot one small detail, a very important detail. The company? The one worth almost $300,000? The one Daniel bragged about to everyone? The one he thought was his? Legally, it wasn't his at all. When we registered the business 3 years earlier, Daniel had terrible credit. So the lawyer suggested something simple. Register the company under my name, just temporarily, until his credit improved. We never changed it, because Daniel said paperwork was annoying. So technically, officially, legally, the entire company belonged to me. And suddenly, a new idea formed in my mind. A very dangerous one. Because if Daniel and Lauren wanted to betray me, then maybe, just maybe, I should let them believe their plan was working. For a little while longer. Because revenge works best when people don't see it coming. That night, I didn't confront Daniel. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I did something much more dangerous. I pretended nothing happened. When Daniel came downstairs after his shower, he kissed me on the cheek. "Hey," he said casually. "What are you doing?" "Just answering emails," I replied. My voice sounded calm, normal, like my entire world hadn't just collapsed. He smiled. Then he opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. "Lauren texted earlier," he said. My heart almost stopped, but I forced myself to stay relaxed. "Oh yeah," I said. "Yeah, she might come over this weekend." Of course she would. Lauren loved coming over. After all, this was practically her house too, apparently. I nodded and smiled. Sounds good. Inside, though, something inside me had changed forever. That night, Daniel fell asleep quickly. He always did. Within minutes, he was snoring softly beside me. But I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every message I had read, every lie, every betrayal. 6 years of my life, built on trust, destroyed in a single evening. But eventually, the sadness disappeared, and something else replaced it. A plan. The next morning I woke up early. Earlier than Daniel. Earlier than usual. And I did something I had never done before. I called our lawyer. His name was Robert Klein. He had helped us register the company 3 years earlier. When he answered the phone, he sounded surprised. "Emily, everything okay?"
"Hi, Robert," I said.
"I just had a quick question about the company paperwork." "Sure."
My heart was beating fast.
"So the company, Carter Digital Solutions." "Yes. It's still legally registered under my name, right?" There was a short pause. Then he said,
"Yes."
"You're the sole owner." Sole owner. Hearing those words out loud felt strange, powerful, dangerous. Daniel isn't listed as a partner or a shareholder? "No," Robert replied. "He's listed as CEO, but ownership is 100% yours." I looked out the kitchen window. The sun was rising over the city, and for the first time since reading those messages, I smiled. "Robert," I said calmly, "I'd like to schedule a meeting." "Of course." As soon as possible. That meeting happened 2 days later. I didn't tell Daniel. I simply said I had errands, which technically wasn't a lie. Robert's office was downtown. Modern building, glass walls, quiet hallways. When I sat down across from him, he immediately noticed something. "You look serious," he said. "I am." I took a deep breath. Then I told him everything. The messages, the affair, the plan to divorce me once the company grew bigger. Robert didn't interrupt. He just listened. When I finished speaking, he leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said slowly, "that's unfortunate."
"Yeah."
Then he folded his hands. "But legally speaking, you're in a very strong position." "How strong?" He smiled slightly. "Emily, Daniel doesn't own anything." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, power, and anger. Robert continued. The company, the assets, the contracts, everything belongs to you. So, what happens if we divorce? Robert looked directly at me. If you're careful, Daniel could walk away with nothing. Nothing. The word echoed in my mind, because Daniel thought he was about to leave me with nothing.
But now,
The situation had changed.
completely.
Robert leaned forward. What do you want to do? I didn't hesitate. I want the company. That's easy. And I want Daniel out of it. Robert nodded. That's also possible. Then he added something interesting. But timing will matter. Meaning, if Daniel thinks he still controls the company, he won't expect anything. I smiled slightly. That's exactly what I want. For the next hour, we created a plan. A careful one, a legal one, and a devastating one. First step, I quietly changed the company's internal access permissions, bank accounts, financial systems, client portals, everything. Daniel still had access, but I now had complete control. Second step, we prepared documents removing Daniel from his CEO position, but we didn't activate them yet.
Not yet.
Because timing was everything. And the final step was the most important one. Robert asked me a question. Do you know when Daniel plans to file for divorce? I thought about the messages. Then I remembered one specific text. Lauren had written, once the company hits $300,000, we should tell her. I looked back at Robert. I think they're waiting for one more big contract. He nodded. Then we wait too. That contract came sooner than I expected. 2 weeks later, Daniel came home excited. More excited than I had ever seen him. Emily, he said when he walked through the door. You won't believe this. I looked up from my laptop. What happened? He grinned. We landed the Denver contract. My heart skipped a beat because I knew exactly what that meant. How big? I asked. Daniel smiled proudly. $180,000. That pushed the company's total value well past $300,000. Exactly the number from Lauren's message. Daniel hugged me.
We did it, he said.
But something in his voice sounded strange. Almost like,
Goodbye.
that night Lauren came over.
Wine.
Laughter. The three of us sitting at the dinner table. Just like always.
But now,
Everything felt different. Because I knew their secret. And they had no idea. I knew. At one point Lauren raised her glass. To success, she said. To Daniel's company. I smiled politely. But inside, I almost laughed. Because the company she was celebrating wasn't Daniel's. And soon, they were both going to learn that the hard way. But what happened 3 days later was even worse than I expected. Because Daniel and Lauren decided it was finally time
to reveal their plan.
and they truly believed I was about to lose everything. 3 days later, everything exploded, but not the way Daniel and Lauren expected. It was a Thursday evening. Daniel asked if we could talk. That sentence alone made my heart beat faster. Sure, I said calmly. He looked strangely confident, almost relieved, like someone who had been waiting for this moment. Lauren is coming over, he added. Of course she was. Apparently this betrayal needed an audience. Lauren arrived 20 minutes later. She didn't look nervous. She looked excited. That was the first moment I realized something. They had rehearsed this. We sat in the living room, Daniel on one side of the couch, Lauren in the chair across from us,
And me.
right in the middle. Daniel took a deep breath. Emily, there's something we need to tell you. I looked at both of them. Okay. Lauren avoided my eyes. Daniel continued. This is going to be hard to hear. I almost smiled, because if he only knew, then he said it. I'm not happy in this marriage anymore. Classic, predictable, scripted, but I stayed silent. So he continued.
And
Lauren and I have developed feelings for each other. Lauren finally looked at me. Her expression tried to look guilty, but I could see something else hiding behind it. Relief. Daniel leaned forward. This wasn't planned. Another lie. But we can't ignore how we feel. Silence filled the room. They were waiting for something.
Tears.
Anger. A breakdown. But I gave them none of it. Instead, I asked a simple question. How long? Lauren hesitated. Daniel answered. About 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. Half a year of dinners together. Movies. Laughing. Pretending to be my friend. Lauren finally spoke. Emily, I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at her. Calmly. You already did. She swallowed hard. But Daniel quickly continued. We want to handle this like adults. Adults. That word almost made me laugh. Daniel cleared his throat. I think it's best if we get divorced. There it was. The moment they had been waiting for. Lauren looked down at her hands, playing the role perfectly. Daniel added something else. We can figure out the finances fairly. Fairly. Another interesting word. Then he said something that revealed everything. After all, the company needs stability right now.
Ah.
There it was. The real reason. The money. The business. The $300,000 company they thought belonged to him. I nodded slowly. Of course, I said. Daniel seemed relieved. I'm glad you understand. Oh, I understood perfectly. Lauren finally spoke again. We really hope we can all move forward peacefully. Peacefully. That was their plan. They betray me. They take the company. They start a new life together. And I quietly disappear. I leaned back in my chair and asked another question. So, when were you planning to tell me? Daniel hesitated. Lauren answered. We thought after the Denver contract. Exactly like the message said. I nodded again. Then I said something very simple. That makes sense. Both of them looked surprised, almost confused, because this wasn't the reaction they expected. Daniel smiled slightly. I knew you'd be reasonable. Then he added something that made everything crystal clear. The company will stay with me, obviously. Obviously. Lauren nodded. It's Daniel's business. That was the moment, the exact moment, when I realized something incredible. They truly believed their own lie.
Completely.
I slowly stood up. Actually, I said, there's just one small problem with that. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up a folder, and placed it on the table in front of them. Daniel looked confused. What's this? I smiled. Documentation. He opened the folder. Inside were legal papers, company registration, ownership documents, official records. His eyes moved across the pages. Then suddenly, his face went pale. What is this? He asked. You tell me, I replied. Lauren leaned closer, reading the documents too. Then she froze, because right there, in bold letters, was the truth they never bothered to check. Owner, Emily Carter, 100%. Daniel looked up slowly. That can't be right. Oh, I said calmly. It is. Lauren shook her head, but it's Daniel's company. I tilted my head slightly. Legally?
No.
Daniel stood up suddenly. This is temporary paperwork. No, I said. It isn't. I tapped the page with my finger. You remember when we registered the company? Daniel said nothing. You had bad credit. I continued. So, the lawyer suggested registering it under my name. Lauren looked confused. But you changed it later, right? I smiled.
No.
The room became completely silent. Daniel looked back down at the papers, reading them again and again, like the words might change. But they didn't. Finally, he whispered something. You're the owner. Yes. Lauren stepped back from the table. Her face had completely changed now. No more confidence. No more excitement. Only panic. Daniel looked at me. This doesn't change anything.
Oh.
It changed everything. I crossed my arms. Actually, it does. Then I said the words that ended his entire plan. Because tomorrow morning, I'm removing you as CEO. Daniel stared at me,
Shocked.
You can't do that. I raised an eyebrow. Watch me. Lauren grabbed Daniel's arm. Daniel, what is she talking about? He didn't answer, because for the first time in years, Daniel finally understood something. The company he planned to steal from me was never his in the first place. And the next morning, things were about to get much worse for him. That night, Daniel barely slept. I could tell. He kept pacing around the house, opening his laptop, closing it again, reading the documents over and over, like the truth might magically disappear. But it didn't. Lauren left about 10 minutes after everything was revealed. She didn't even say goodbye to me. She just whispered something to Daniel near the door. Then she walked out.
Fast.
Like the house was on fire. Daniel finally looked at me again. "This is insane," he said. "No," I replied calmly. "This is paperwork." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're not actually going to do this." I tilted my head. "Do what?" "Remove me from my own company." I smiled slightly. "Your company?" Daniel didn't answer, because now he knew it wasn't his. That night we slept in separate rooms. Not because we argued, but because there was nothing left to say. The marriage had ended the moment I read those messages. Everything after that was just business. The next morning I woke up early, earlier than usual. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I had a meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. with Robert and the company's senior staff. Daniel didn't know about it yet. At 8:15, he came downstairs.
He looked exhausted.
"Emily," he said, "we need to talk." I closed my laptop. "Okay." He sat across from me. "This doesn't have to turn into a war." Interesting, because yesterday he seemed perfectly comfortable destroying my life.
But now,
Suddenly, he wanted peace. "We can figure something out," he continued. "You keep part of the company. I keep part." I raised my hand slightly, stopping him.
no.
His face tightened. "What do you mean no?" "I mean no. Simple.
Clear.
Final. You cheated on me with my best friend," I said calmly. "For months." He didn't deny it. "You planned to leave me once the company made enough money." Still silence. "So no," I continued. "We're not splitting anything." Daniel leaned forward. "You're being emotional." That word, emotional. Like betrayal was just a minor inconvenience. I checked the time on my phone. 8:58. Almost time. "Actually," I said, standing up, "I'm being professional." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "You'll see." At exactly 9 a.m., Daniel's phone started ringing. He looked at the screen.
Confused.
"It's the office." "Answer it," I said. He picked up the call. "Hello." I watched his face change as he listened. First confusion, then shock, then anger. "What do you mean, emergency meeting?" he asked.
Pause.
Why wasn't I told? Another pause. Then his eyes slowly moved toward me. He stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous," he said into the phone. "I'm the CEO." Another pause. Then silence. Finally, he lowered the phone. "They said you're running the meeting." "Yes." "And they received documents this morning." "Yes." His voice became quiet. "What documents?" I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up another folder, and handed it to him. "These ones." He opened it quickly, reading the first page, then the second, then the third, and suddenly, he understood. The document was official.
Signed. Filed.
Effective immediately. Daniel Carter, removed as CEO of Carter Digital Solutions.
He looked up at me.
"You actually did it." "Yes." His voice rose. "You can't just fire me." I crossed my arms. "I can. You don't know how to run the company." I almost laughed. "I've been running it for 3 years." Daniel stared at me, anger building in his face. "What about my shares?" "You don't have any." "What about my contracts?" "They belong to the company." "And the company," I smiled slightly, "belongs to me." For a moment he said nothing. Then he whispered something. "You ruined everything." I looked directly at him. "No, Daniel. You did." He grabbed his jacket, stormed toward the door, then stopped. What happens now? I shrugged slightly. You find a new job. He opened the door. Then I added one more thing. Oh, and Daniel? He turned around. You should probably tell Lauren the news. His face turned pale again. Because now the situation was very different. Lauren didn't just steal someone's husband. She stole a husband who was now unemployed and completely broke. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Daniel tried to fight it, but legally, there was nothing he could do. The company stayed mine. 100%. Today, that same company is worth over $1.2 million. We have 20 employees, clients across the country, and a brand new office downtown. Sometimes people ask me if I regret anything, if I wish things had ended differently. And honestly,
No.
because Daniel and Lauren taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never build your future on someone else's loyalty. Build it on your own power. And the funniest part? Last year I heard something interesting. Daniel and Lauren broke up. Apparently, money problems. Funny how that works. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel LifeConfessions TV. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?